Charles I, a great leader who united the kingdoms of Great Britain and brought peace and prosperity to England, or a tyrannical absolute monarch who led only by his own judgment and selfish ideals at the expense of the public? That's for you to decide.
Charles I was born into the House of Stuart on November 19th, 1600. He was the second son of King James VI of Scotland, who would gain the crown of England shortly after Charles' birth in 1603. Growing up in a royal family, Charles had access to the highest level of education and became a strong horseman and marksman. However, he was always behind compared to his older brother Henry. Unfortunately, or fortunately for Charles, Henry died in 1612 due to typhoid fever, making him the heir to the throne.
In another not-so-unfortunate event for Charles, his father died in 1625 of a stroke at the age of 58. It was now time for Charles to start his legacy. He started by marrying Henrietta Maria of France, who was Roman Catholic, in order to reinforce England's relationship with France.
From the beginning of Charles' unpopular rule, he argued with the Parliament, who sought to curb his royal prerogative and give more power to the people. His marriage to a Catholic worried many reformed religious groups, including English Puritans and Scottish Covenanters.
When faced with opposition from the Parliament over many issues including levying taxes without their consent, Charles dissolved it and imprisoned 9 parliamentary leaders in 1928. The period of Charles's rule without the Parliament is known as his personal rule. The first problem he faced was raising money, as he no longer had the support of Parliament. He resorted to using many dodgy methods of making money, one of which required those living in coastal areas to furnish a certain number of ships, or pay the equivalent. This was known as the ship money tax and only strengthened the public's hate for Charles. He also seized almost £130,000 worth of silver from the mint at the Tower of London.
Charles enforced many other restrictions and taxes on the people of England, but what really initiated his downfall was when he ordered the use of the new prayer book in Scotland in 1637, which was almost identical to the English Book of Common Prayer. Many Scots rejected this book for its Anglican ideas, which differed from the strong Calvinist religion of Scotland. This initiated a series of riots and protests that led to the Bishops' War in 1639. This led to the resurrection of the Parliament.
With the Parliament strong and the territories of England on edge, the Royalists, who aligned with Charles I and the Parliament parties, rose against one another. The First English Civil War started in 1642. It was, of course, between the previously mentioned Royalists, who were the followers of Charles, and the Parliamentarians, who allied with the Scottish Covenanters. After many battles, Charles was captured and was accused of treason against England. He was condemned to death in 1649. Parliament viewed Charles's rule as, quote, a wicked design to erect and uphold in himself an unlimited and tyrannical power to rule according to his will and to overthrow the rights and liberties of the people, end quote. Charles I was executed on January 30th, 1649 at the Palace of Whitehall in London.
Charles I is a perfect display of the negatives of a totalitarian leader. He ruled by his own accord, regardless of how it affected the public or those around him. He was the first large public figure and monarch to be executed, highlighting the extreme consequences of his totalitarian rule and the rejection of his authority by both Parliament and the people. His reign ultimately serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of absolute power and the importance of political balance between Parliament, monarch, and people in England.